Welcome to the Freely Rooted Mama podcast. Where I am their mother, I make the choice. All right, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Freely Rooted Mama podcast. Today I'm so excited. I'm going to be sharing my birth story of baby Eila. She was born on Monday, May 22nd at 6:05 a.m. She was 7 pounds, 10 ounces, 20 and a half inches long, and she was perfect. And she came fast. So if you haven't listened to my episode yet with that I did a while back on our birth story with Isaac, you can go check that out as a positive birth story. But his birth was also very fast. So we figured that she was also going to be fast, and that also I needed to do a better job in this pregnancy of letting the birth team know well in advance when contractions were starting, because I just went from like 0 to 60 with Isaac. We kind of figured something similar might happen with Eila. So she was born on a Monday. The Tuesday before we had our 38-week checkup at the midwife, everything sounded good. Everything looked good. The one suggestion that they made though was that my diaphragm and like everything seemed really tight. And so they're like, if you could just, do some inversions, like spinning baby inversions, if you can kind of do some massage and try to get that diaphragm to loosen up a little bit so she has space to start to move, that would be really good. Which makes sense because with my son Isaac, he did like somersaults and karate in my stomach all his entire pregnancy. Whereas with Eila, I can feel her move, or I felt her move a lot, but she was kind of stayed in the same spot the entire time. So that was on Tuesday. Fast forward to Friday, I had a prenatal massage where my lady is absolutely a godsend and did wonders. So she worked primarily just on the diaphragm for 90 minutes, and the rib cage, and just trying to get things to open up. And I remember standing up afterwards feeling like, oh my gosh, I feel balanced. Like my stomach feels like there's space and there's room. So that happened Friday morning. By Friday night at like 7-ish, I started to feel contractions, but they were like 15, 20 minutes apart, so I'd have like 3 or 4 in an hour, and they were lasting like 15 seconds. And so that went on for like a couple of hours. I was able to go to sleep. They were just uncomfortable. So, they weren't like massive contractions. It was just uncomfortableness. But I knew it wasn't a Braxton Hicks. So my husband was supposed to go hunting on Saturday. I said, wake me up before you go and I'll let you kind of know like where I'm at. And so he woke me up and I didn't feel anything through the night. I hadn't felt anything in a while. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe it was just like, early labor. So I'm like, you go hunting, just keep your phone on you. So Saturday goes by. I had periods of time where I would get like 2 or 3 in an hour, and they would be like those 15 seconds. Not much more than that. So went on about our day. By Saturday night, I had started to get really nauseous. Like food just didn't sound good. I was having like a little bit of diarrhea. And again, they were just very like sporadic, nothing consistent. Nothing was getting more intense. The contractions weren't getting longer. I've texted my photographer, who's also a doula, just kind of warning her because she lived 2 hours away. So I wanted her to have the most heads up. And she's like, maybe it's just, really preliminary labor, like it's early, just keep me posted. Sunday comes, again, same sort of thing, like they're 2 or 3 in an hour, 15 seconds, nothing major. We go to bed Sunday night, and I woke up, and Sunday night, it was kind of a little bit more uncomfortable, but I'm like, at this point I stopped trusting myself because I'm like, here we are, like it's been 4 days. This is probably going to go on for like weeks, because I know women that have had like contractions for weeks, early labor contractions. So about 2:00 in the morning on Monday, I woke up and it was definitely more uncomfortable. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to take a bath, go relax, because I couldn't really get back to sleep. Took a bath, tried to get back in bed, couldn't go back to sleep. So I came out here to the den and watched Schitt's Creek, did some embroidery stitching. And by like 3:00, I'm like, I should actually probably start timing these now because I do feel like they're being more consistent. So I started clocking them, and it was like every 20 minutes lasting about 30 seconds. So by about 3:50, I texted my midwife team and just said, hey, just giving you a heads up, I'm about 15, 20 minutes, able to talk through the contractions. They're lasting about 30 seconds. Texted my doula my photographer. Our doula, so kind of side story, our doula was set to come on Thursday. With the weekend and all that stuff happening, we decided to change her flight to Monday, and her flight was getting her in at 2:30 p.m. So here we are at like 3:50, 4 o'clock a.m. on Monday with these contractions that are being consistent. And I remember I texted my dad because he was going to come help watch Isaac on the day, and my dad and my stepmom, Tisha. And I said, hey, just kind of letting you guys know, having some contractions. My mucus plug had started to come out. But again, like my mucus plug came out with Isaac like 2 weeks before he came. So the whole time I'm just like, oh, don't get too excited. Don't get too anxious about this. And my dad calls me at 4 and he's like, okay, great. Like I'll head over. And I was like, okay, sounds good. Then I went and woke up my husband and I said, hey, I don't think you're going to be able to work out this morning. Like, I just want you in the house just in case. Isaac, of course, woke up because I'm sure he could feel like the excitement and the energy in the air. So him and I went downstairs and we started putting on the bed sheets and, just making sure the birth space was all ready. Cause I'm like, oh, maybe by tonight, like she'll be here. Okay. Well, by like 4:40, things had ramped up. I went from, 15, 20 minutes to every 5 to 10 minutes they were coming, and they were lasting about 45 seconds, and they were definitely getting more intense. And I remember I called my dad and I'm like, are you almost here? Cause I'm actually pretty sure that this is happening this morning. And my dad shows up. I probably sat out in the living room on the birth ball with Isaac for maybe 10 more minutes, and then was like, I'm going to go get in the shower. And Justin I think he was just doing a couple last minute things. And he's like, well, don't use too much of the hot water because we got to go fill up the tub downstairs. I was like, okay. Went to the bathroom and I'm like, nope, never mind. We just went from like a 6 to a 10 on the intensity scale. So then I'm calling to him and I'm like, go fill up the bathtub. The midwife team then got here right about then. So we're at about 5:15-ish maybe right now, 5:30 probably. It's like hard to know. Go downstairs. I had like a couple more pretty intense contractions, like intense to where like, I'm needing the hip squeeze now. Like can't really talk through the contractions. That lasted for maybe about 5 minutes. And this is why I'm like, I basically skip transition. You go from like contractions that you can breathe through to like, contractions to pushing. And it's like, I skip the contractions. I have like 5 minutes of them and then I go into that. So I'm like sitting there taking them and the midwife is like, just let us know when you're thinking you want to push. And I'm like, okay, I'll let you know. And then like one contraction later, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to push. And she's like, okay, well, the tub's not full yet. I was like, I need to, obviously I'm not this calm as I'm saying it, but I'm like, I need to push. So they laid out all the blankets on the floor in case that I was going to push there. Luckily, the pool got filled fast enough, got in the pool. So I did like one push contraction on the ground, got in the pool. 23 minutes later, here came Miss Eila at 6:05 a.m. It went from like 0 to 90 in like an hour. Probably by the time my dad got here to that, it was like 45 minutes. It was insane, but it was beautiful. We had her in the tub. My husband tried catching her, but she had so much vernix on her, which was so great, that he like caught her and then she kind of slipped and floated back up right between my legs. And then I caught her, and we sat in the pool and just loved on her for a good, like 15 minutes before getting out, and then snuggling her on the bed and, breastfeeding her and then doing her newborn exams and all that good stuff. My poor doula did not make it. Obviously, she was born that morning, so my doula did not make it, although she came and helped for a couple days, which was awesome. And my photographer did not make it. She probably got there about 20 minutes after we had Eila. So, but I did this time, what I did learn from my last birth with Isaac, and I would recommend this to any mother doing birth, because there's just something so incredibly special about birthing your child, regardless of where you do it or how you do it. But what I learned with Isaac is we had the midwives, there was a couple students there for the birth of Isaac. And so they took a couple pictures of during the process, which was so great. But what I learned with that one is I really wish I would have had video, and I would have had more pictures, which is why we hired a photographer for this birth. But not knowing if she was going to make it in time or not, I set up my phone to record the whole thing. So I have too many children right now. I have her entire birth on film, which is on video, which is incredible. I've already watched it twice. And we got some amazing pictures of her, like during her exam and cuddling her and stuff like that. So that's really great. But I would highly recommend, if you have an extra phone, set it up and just video the whole thing, because I personally think that one day you're going to want to look back and watch that. For me, I wanted to look back and watch it pretty immediately. For me, it's kind of interesting because on one hand, for those of you that are listening that already had children and maybe you had a very long labor, like my photographer and I were joking about, she was telling me about one of the births of her children, and she did like active labor pushing for like 12 hours. And I was like, I did 23 minutes. I don't know how you do 12 hours. So on one hand, I'm so grateful that I have these amazing fast births. On the other hand, if any of you guys have had like this big day, whether it's your wedding or I don't know, maybe it's graduation or I don't know. Those are the only two I can think of right now. Usually the day after, maybe not usually, maybe this is just me, but when I got married, I remember the next day, this like feeling of like nostalgia and sadness mixed together coming, even though I was so happy. And like for our wedding, we were in Italy, like it was amazing. But just this sadness because like this build up to this day is now done. Like you did the day and you completed it and it's done. And I remember feeling that way with Isaac. His hit me like a couple days after. But I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like he's here, like that, the build, like, I mean, it's so amazing that he's here. Like, don't get me wrong, but like the build up to this day is done. And with Eila, I definitely felt that actually probably even the same day, a little bit on like maybe Monday night. I remember feeling like this wave of like sadness, like so happy, but mixed with sadness at the same time that like, her birth, like she's here, like the birth is done. Like it went so fast. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm making sense or if any of you guys can relate. Because again, love that she's here. You know, I just love on her. She's amazing. She's beautiful. She's so healthy. And there's just, something about the fact that it's done. You know, it's one more birth. It's one more pregnancy. And, I don't know how many kids we'll have total, but just one less that I'll have. And I don't even know if I'm making sense. Now I'm just rambling. But that would be the one thing that I would say has come with her birth being so fast is like, oh my gosh, like, we were having breakfast and coffee by like 8 a.m. and we had the whole day on Monday. It was just insane. But it was so beautiful at the same time. And I'm so grateful for everybody, like all my family and the midwives and the student midwives and photographer and doulas. Like we had such a great support system. I was so grateful that we did it in our home. My dad and Isaac got to come down like just moments after she was born and got to see her, and Isaac got to see her. And that's, one of the most beautiful things ever is watching, like I'm about to cry right now, is watching your children just connect and seeing that love that they have for each other already. It's so amazing. So that is her birth story. It was beautiful. It was awesome. Again, water birth for the win. Though there's something about the warm water that just makes all of it so much easier. And this being my second time round, there was a couple things that I did a little different. One is I obviously knew the importance of breath. So really focused on my breathing and really focused on keeping, like if you've done any birthing prep classes, like you want to keep your tone low not high. You want to keep your breaths long as in and out as you can, like deep, deep breaths. So I felt like I did breathing a lot better this time. And the other thing was keeping those sounds low. So like when you're going to push, really keeping that, keeping your tone in that low range rather than going into like a higher range, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that I did much better. I felt much calmer as I went through the waves of pushing than I did with Isaac. There's just something like your body's kind of already done it before, and you kind of tap back into this remembrance of having done it before. I don't know another way to say that. It's kind of like riding a bike, right? You just kind of tap back into it, and it just comes second nature. So I would say were the two big things that I got to bring into this birth. And yeah, it was amazing. I can't wait for, the next child that we decide to bring into this world, and we'll do a home birth again, because clearly I'm not going to make it anywhere in a car with with how fast things transition. And yeah, we'll probably do a water birth again. And, I can't wait for my kids to be able to be a part of it. And it was just beautiful. So I hope that this, for any of you that are maybe about to give birth, or, you might just be at the start of pregnancy, or maybe this is just helping you relive your birth story. Like, there's something so magical about it. I highly recommend, even if you don't have a podcast like this, like record you interpreting the day of your birth, of your child's birth, or write it down in a journal somewhere. Because, as time goes on, like memories start to fade, or you might forget parts. And there's just something so beautiful, I think, about getting to remember and rehear the day of your child's birth. So with that, I hope you all have a beautiful day, and just excited. You can follow along on Instagram, and you'll see lots of pictures of Eila and Isaac, because I'm just obsessed with both of them right now. Well, I'm always obsessed with them, but if you want to see how beautiful she is, you can find me on Instagram. Otherwise, I will see you next week.